The stars above Kelverus Prime shimmered like scattered diamonds, but young Cadet Varn wasn't looking at the sky. He was staring at the old history book his teacher had given him, one that wasn't allowed in the academy anymore. The pages were cracked and yellow, filled with strange stories. And right there on page 104, he saw it again. Terrans, the heading said. The forgotten species, the ghosts of the stars. Just old stories, Varn whispered, even though his hands were shaking. He was in the academy's empty library, alone at midnight. He wasn't supposed to be there, and he definitely wasn't supposed to have that book. But curiosity was louder than the rules. He kept reading. The book spoke of a time 10,000 years ago, when the galaxy was young and war was everywhere. It said the Terrans had come from a place called Earth, a blue planet, a death world. And the creatures who lived there were unlike anything ever seen. Small by galactic standards, soft-skinned but terrifying. They didn't conquer planets with numbers. They did it with willpower, fire, rage, and something called spite. They didn't stop fighting even when their homes burned. Even when they were outnumbered. They only stopped when everything else was gone. But then, they vanished. No. One knew why. Some said they destroyed themselves. Others said they went into hiding. Many believed they were just a myth, a story made to scare children. Varn closed the book. He had to get back before someone noticed. The next morning, he sat in class while Professor Altrin lectured on ancient wars. When he asked about humans, the other cadets laughed. Those fairy tales again, said one. They never existed, said another. It's just propaganda from the early days of the Empire. Ghosts don't fly ships, someone joked. Professor Altrin smiled weakly, but didn't argue. He just moved on. But that night, something strange happened. The sky darkened. Literally, Kelvus Prime's orbital sensors picked up a fleet entering. The system. No response to hails. No identification codes. The ships were large, too large, silent, cold. They moved with precision, but said nothing. Varn saw the alert during training. At first, everyone thought it was a drill. But when the planetary defense systems activated for real, the fear began. The fleet stopped just outside weapons range. Hundreds of ships. Black hulls, no lights. No movement, the High Council called. For calm. But their voices shook. The media tried to explain it. Away-lost traders, pirates, an unknown migration, but everyone could see the truth. This wasn't normal. The defense grid attempted a deep scan. After 5 seconds, the computers shut down. All power to the scanners fried. Fried, not jammed. It was like the enemy ships had looked back, didn't like being watched. On the third day, a single signal came through. One word. TR and the command center fell silent. Some officers didn't recognize the word, but the older ones did. Those who had studied the band histories, one of them, Admiral Jurek, collapsed into his chair and whispered, "No, not them, not again." Varn watched all of this from a secure broadcast in the academy. He saw the fear. In the eyes of the most powerful leaders, people who never shook during war, now frozen at a single name. That night, Varn returned to the library. The old book was still there. He opened it again, turning to the final chapter. There were no pictures, just a quote. "If you ever see their ships in the sky again, run. If you cannot run, surrender. If you cannot surrender, pray outside." The sky grew darker, not from clouds, but from shadows. The Terran fleet began moving, not toward the planet, but into a perfect ring formation around Kelverus Prime. They weren't attacking, they were surrounding, watching, waiting. Why? What did they want? The Kelverus High Council broadcasted peaceful messages, offers of diplomacy, promises of trade, even gifts. No answer. Every message vanished into the void. Someone tried to send a probe to one of the Terran ships. The moment it reached within 1,000 kilometers, it exploded. No weapon was seen. No light. Stash gone. One senator suggested attacking first. "We must defend our world," shouted Admiral. Jurek shook his head. "That's not a fleet. That's a graveyard waiting to open. We strike and they'll Wipe us clean. The council fell into argument. But deep down they all knew one thing. If the stories were true, then nothing could save them. Varn snuck into the Academy server room and accessed old military files. Most were locked. He found fragments, broken images, war logs from centuries ago. He watched shaky footage of a planet being glassed from orbit, not by plasma, not by energy beams, but by rocks, giant metal rods dropped at near light speed. They didn't need lasers, just gravity. Another file showed a human marine, bloody injured, still fighting. He took down a squad of Zarn warriors each, twice his size, using nothing but a broken pipe. Another file had only a single phrase. In red, engaging Terran ground forces is not advised. Survival probability, 4%. Varn's breath caught. He closed the files and sat in the dark heart. Pounding, was this it? Was the myth real? Why were they back now after 10,000 years? Then came the strangest thing of all. On the 6th night, human voice spoke. One of their ships opened communication. The audio was clear, deep, slow, and full of ice. Kelvaris. Prime, do you remember? Everyone in the command center froze. The voice continued, you watched. You let them burn us. You erased the records, buried the truth. But we remember. The message ended. No demands, no threats. Just memory. Professor Altrin was called in for questioning the next day. He'd once studied human lore before it was banned. They asked him, what does it mean? Why now? He only replied with a question. Of his own? Do you know what humans feared the most? He asked. The officers didn't respond. Being forgotten, silence followed. Outside, the fleet remained still, but everyone knew the real storm had already started. The Terran fleet did not speak again. For 2 days they remained in orbit, silent, cold, unmoving, like giant statues in the sky. Watching, the people of Kelvers Prime waited in fear. Some thought the humans would strike without warning. Others hoped it was just a show of force. But no one truly understood what was coming. In the government chambers, chaos had taken over. Every faction blamed another. Some said they should surrender now. Yes. Others wanted to fire first, but Admiral Jurek stood still as stone. Do not provoke. Them, he said. We survived the first time by silence. Now we must survive again. The council ignored him. They sent messages to every nearby system. Pleas for help. Calls for aid, but no answer came. Something was wrong. The communications officer checked again and again. The signal was strong. The calls were being sent, but nothing was coming back. One young technician made a terrible discovery. The Terran fleet was jamming all outgoing signals, not with noise, but with mirrors. They were reflecting transmissions back, making it look like they were sent, when really, they were trapped in a loop. The galaxy didn't know Kelvaris was under siege. They were alone. Varn sat by the Academy window, staring up at the dark shapes in orbit. He could see them with his own eyes, now huge silhouettes, blocking starlight. The largest one looked like a floating city, a shape so wide it stretched across the horizon. The news channels didn't say much, just short updates, controlled reports. But the people were panicking. Cities were silent. Stores were empty. No one laughed anymore. A few brave protesters gathered outside the council building, holding signs. Talk to them, and don't start a war. One of them was taken away by security. No one saw him again. At night, Varn read more from the Forbidden Book. It spoke of something called the Silence Protocol. It was a human strategy. Dumb. A psychological tactic. Terran, fleets would arrive silently, say nothing, do nothing. Let fear grow. Let the enemy panic. And then when the enemy fired first, they would respond. Not with words, but with fire. The humans didn't just want to win battles. They wanted their enemies to regret starting them, Varn told Professor Altrin what he had read. The professor nodded. Slowly, they're waiting for us to shoot, he said, so they can finish what began long ago. Varn asked the question no one dared to ask. What did we do to them? The professor sighed. There was once a coalition, he said. thousands of species. We called ourselves the protectors of the galaxy, but we feared humans, their minds, their strength, their unpredictability. So the council voted. Voted. For what? Varn asked. To burn Earth, to end them. Varn stared in disbelief. We dropped plasma from orbit. We used viruses. We erased them from history. Every species agreed. He looked away, except one. Who? The professor shook. His head, that part was lost. But someone warned them, helped them survive. And now, they've returned. Varn didn't sleep that night. The next day, a new voice entered the conversation. A general named Krexiong, ambitious, loud, stood before the council and demanded action. They're bluffing, he shouted. They're ghosts, old myths, made real by fear. We have ships, we have armies. Strike first and show them who rules the stars. Jurek stood. If you strike, they won't reply with weapons. They'll reply with extinction. But the council was split. Too many were afraid. Too many were angry. And General Krex had already made his move. A single Culvaris warship was sent toward the edge of the Terran fleet. A warning shot was fired. Just a beam across space, not meant to hit. Just to send a message, the Terrans responded. Immediately. Not with a counterattack, not with words, but with light. A single ship turned. Its engines lit up with a strange blue flame. It didn't fire a missile, didn't shoot a laser. Instead, a black rod, long and smooth, was launched from its hull. Just a piece of metal. No one understood. Then the rod hit the Kelvara's warship. There was no explosion, there was no fire, just silence. And then the warship vanished. One moment it was there. The next it was dust, vaporized by pure speed. Strike moving faster than sound. Faster than light could react. A weapon powered by nothing but momentum and precision. The command center on Calvaris went still. No one could breathe. The fleet remained quiet after that. Not a single ship moved. The message was clear. Do not fire. Again, in the academy, students stopped attending classes. In homes, families stayed underground. The orbital defense grid remained powered, but no one dared to use it. Varn received a private message from Professor Eltrin. Meet me at the archives. Midnight. Come alone. That night, Varn followed the instructions. Inside the dark halls of the old archive, the professor showed him something hidden beneath the floorboards, a file. A single sealed file. It was marked. Operation Earthfall, confidential, due. Not open. Eltrin opened it. Inside were images, documents, maps of Earth before it was bombed. Messages from alien leaders, orders to strike. One message caught Varn's eye. It was from a Kelvris official, his ancestor. We must destroy them. Now, if they evolve further, no force in the galaxy will stop them. Another message from a Terran outpost. We offered peace. You gave us fire. We offered science. You gave us war. You will regret this choice. Then the last entry. A recording, a blurry video. A human soldier, burned, bloody, half covered in ash, looking directly into the camera. His voice was quiet. You think this is over? We are not gone. We are not myths. We are waiting. The video ended. Outside, the Terran ships began to move again, but this time they weren't just watching. They were getting into attack position. The Terran ships moved slowly but with purpose. Not random. It's not clumsy. Precise, each ship glided into a new position around Kelvaris Prime. Their dark hulls reflected no light. Their engines made no sound. But every military officer on the planet knew exactly what was happening. This was a formation. A battle net. They were surrounding the planet from all sides. Admiral Jurek stood in the command center, his eyes cold and calm. They're preparing to strike, he said. General Krex paced behind him, still trying to save face. They wouldn't. Wait this long if they plan to attack? They're bluffing. But Jurek ignored him. He was looking at the pattern the Terrans had drawn in orbit. It wasn't random. Ships were forming a circle tight, smooth, and unbroken. Varn, watching from the Academy's security room, noticed it too. It looked familiar. He opened the forbidden book again and flipped through the pages. Then he saw it. Protocol Vengeance, Orbital Fire Pattern, Terran Tactical Code. The halo, it wasn't just a formation. It was a symbol, a warning. And if the book was right, the next step would be fire. Professor Altrin sent a message to the council. He begged them to surrender, to open a channel, to apologize even if it meant humiliation. But the council was afraid to admit the truth. Admitting guilt meant confessing to a war crime buried for 10,000 years, so they stayed silent. On the 6th hour of the Terran movement, one of their ships moved forward alone. It was smaller than the rest, but still massive. Its hull was strange. It's full of marks and symbols that no one could read. But one symbol stood out, a red earth, wrapped in chains, dash burning. The ship opened a channel. Again, a single voice spoke, deep. Call, Kelverus Prime. This is Judgment Class. Vessel Ash of Hope. We are not here to destroy. We are here to remind.
Ow.
The voice continued. You burned our home. You erased our name.
Yeah.
You left our children to die in fire. And then you told the stars that we never existed. Now you will feel what we felt. Then the message ended. And without warning, a beam of red light struck the surface. It didn't hit a city. It didn't destroy military bases. Instead, it wrote, the beam carved letters into the surface of the northern continent miles wide, visible from space, from every ship, from every camera. One word. Remember. The people of Kelverus panicked. Alarms rang out across the cities. People fled underground. Every government system activated. Emergency protocols. Ships tried to flee the planet, but the Terran fleet didn't let them pass. They weren't destroying the planet, but they weren't letting anyone leave. Either it was a prison now. One city high in the mountains lost contact with the outside world. Satellite images showed their power grid was fried. Their communications towers melted. And yet, no explosions were reported, just silence, like the power had been sucked out later. When scouts sent a drone to fly over the area, they found the entire city empty. No bodies. No smoke. No sign of struggle. Gone. Every single person, gone. No one knew how. No weapons. No attack signals. No radiation. Just gone. The message was clear. This wasn't war. This was punishment. Varn tried to contact the archives again, but the Academy's systems were failing. The Terrans had begun disabling tech across the planet, but only in certain places, targeted, controlled. They weren't here to destroy blindly. They were here to show something. And that's when the second message came. A video it played on every screen across Kelverus Prime hijacked. Forced, unstoppable. The footage was old. From Earth before the fall, it showed cities, oceans, forests, and families. Humans, laughing, building, dreaming. Then it cut. Explosions, fires, screams, alien warships attacking. Plasma strikes from orbit. Cities turned to glass. The camera zoomed in on a small child barefoot, crying, covered in ash, reaching toward the sky, and then a voice. You erased our memories. Good, no, now we give them back to you. The footage ended, the signal cut off, and every soul on Kelverus Prime felt the same thing. Shame, even the council, fell quiet. No more shouting, no more planning, just silence. Professor Altrin addressed the council one last time. We must send a message. Not of strength, not of pride, but of regret. Admiral Jurek agreed. I will write it myself. That night, a signal was sent. A short message. To the Terran fleet, this world remembers. Everyone waited. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Then 3. Terran fleet remained in place. No reply. But something changed. The massive ship. The one with the burning Earth symbol turned, slowly. It began to move away. One by one, the other ships followed. No attack came. No fire, just silence. And then Stared 10 long days, the sky began to clear. The stars returned. The Terrans had left. But the word remained carved into the planet's skin, remember? And every child who looked up at the night sky from that day forward saw that word glowing red from space, a mark that would never fade, a message that could not be erased. The myths were real. The ghosts had returned, and the fire that spoke had said, "Enough." After the Terran fleet left, Kelver's Prime was quiet, too quiet. People returned to the streets, blinking in the sunlight, as if waking from a nightmare. Schools reopened, stores restocked, officials acted like life was normal again, but no. One truly believed it. The word remember still burned across the northern continent, glowing even at night. It could be seen from orbit. It was a scarand, a warning, but the council told the people to move on. They said, "The danger has passed." They lied. In the deep southern region of Calvaris, near the old mining colony of Eltris. A strange signal was picked up. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't even Calvaris code. It was Terran Varn, now secretly working with Professor Ultron, got access to the signal. They decoded it using a language key from the Forbidden Book. The message was short. "One of us is still there." At first, they thought it was a trap, but a second message followed. "He remembers, he survived." Varn's eyes widened. A human. On Kelvaris, Ultron looked just as shocked. If that's true, then everything changes. But they had to find him. They couldn't trust the council. If the government knew a human was on the planet, they'd either kill him or use him as a trophy. So Varn and Ultron went alone. They left the city in an old scout vehicle, disguised as surveyors. The road to Eltris was long and dangerous. Storms rolled over the horizon. Old rebel groups still roamed the outer lands, but they pushed forward. After 2 days, they reached the edge of the Eltris mining zone. Most of it was abandoned, rusted. Towers, cracked buildings. Nothing alive for miles. But then they found it. A hidden tunnel, half buried under rock. A faint heat signature came from inside, and movement they entered carefully. Inside, it was warm. Lights flickered. Old machines buzzed quietly. Someone had been living here. Then they saw him, a figure in the dark, tall, wrapped in black cloth, face hidden under a hood. But it was clear this wasn't a Kelverin. He turned slowly, eyes glowing faintly behind a metal visor. His voice was quiet. "Rough, you came," he said. Varn stepped forward. "You're human." The figure didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, he pulled back the hood. Underneath was a man-pale skin, scarred face, eyes that looked ancient, tired but strong. "My name is Kale," he said. "Terran Special Recon, Unit 7. I was left behind." After the First War, Varen couldn't believe it. "You survived all this time?" Kale nodded. "They thought I died. My unit was wiped out, but I escaped underground, hid for years. The planet changed. The people forgot." He looked at Ultron. "But I didn't." Kale told them everything. The First Terran War, the betrayal, the burning of Earth, how his unit was sent to sabotage Kelver's defenses, but was abandoned when the Council wiped Earth clean. "I watched your cities rise from nothing," Kale said. "I learned your ways. I saw your lies," Ultron asked. "Why didn't you leave with the fleet?" Kale looked away. "They don't know I'm alive." Silence filled the tunnel. Then Kale turned to Varn. "But now they will." He handed Varn a small device. It looked like a coin butt when activated. It opened a floating hologram. Inside was data maps, ship codes, communication logs, proof that the Council had lied to the galaxy, proof of the war against humanity, and something worse, a list. Thousands of alien species, all marked as complicit. Ultron gasped. "If the Terrans use this list, they won't stop at Kelvaris." Kale nodded. "They won't. Earth has changed. We're not builders anymore. We're survivors. And survivors. Remember who tried to kill them?" Varn stood still. He had a choice to make. Keep this secret or try to stop what was coming, Kale looked him in the eye. If you want to save your world, don't lie to your people. Let them know the truth. Or the next fleet. Don't just write a word into your planet, they'll erase it. Outside the tunnel, the sky rumbled. A flash of light appeared far above. A new signal, another Terran ship, had arrived. Not a fleet this time, just one. But bigger than any they'd seen before, it hovered in high orbit, silent, unmoving like a sword hanging above the world. The message came quickly. You have one chance to confess. We are listening. The ship above Kelvarus Prime was unlike anything seen before. It was massive, larger than a moon, shaped like a black dagger. It didn't glow, it didn't hum, it simply waited. The people looked up and trembled. The message from the Terrans echoed again across every screen. You have one chance to confess. We are listening. Inside the council chamber, panic returned. Some members shouted to prepare for war. Others demanded silence. But no one had an answer. Not this time. Because this time, someone knew the truth. Varn and Professor Altrin returned to the city with Kale's message. Stolen data. Proof of history. Varn stood in front of the emergency media channel. Alone. The broadcast had been blocked by the council, but Altrin hacked the system. It would reach every home on the planet. Varn took a breath. Then he began. My name is Varn. I am a citizen of Kelvarus, and I bring the truth. He showed the documents. The orders to burn Earth. The old messages of fear and hate. The vote to erase humanity from the galaxy. He showed Kale's recording. The words of a forgotten soldier, a man who lived in hiding. While the council lied to every generation, Varn's voice stayed calm. We did this. Not them. We betrayed them first. Now they remember. He paused. We must remember too. People across Kelvarus froze in their homes, eyes wide, mouths open. The myths they had ignored, the stories they had buried, all were real. The council tried to shut the message down, but it was too late. The Terran ship had already received it. The skies flickered. Then the Terrans replied. The new message was short, just 2 words. Truth accepted. But the message wasn't. For the planet, it was for the galaxy. Because the Terran ship didn't just hover, it broadcast Varn's confession to every system. Every world, every species. For the first time in 10,000 years, the truth of the human purge spread across. The stars and the galaxy trembled. On distant planets, leaders panicked. On military bases, officers watched the recording in silence. On neutral worlds, civilians wept because they all saw the list. The names of their species, the votes they cast long ago, the betrayal they tried to forget. And now, the humans remembered all of it. On Kelvarus, people poured into the streets not to protest, but to grieve. Old statues were torn down. Council buildings were locked. The truth had broken the silence. In the hidden room beneath the archives. Kale watched the message too. Altrin stood beside him. They heard you. Kale didn't smile. It's not over. Above them, the Terran ship began to shift. Panels moved, lights flared, and a new voice spoke. This one was deeper, ancient. This was the first truth. There are more. To those who helped us, we remember. To those who betrayed us, we are coming. Then the ship disappeared, not with engines, not with sound. It simply faded into the black dot. Gone. But its signal didn't stop, for days. The confession echoed across the galaxy. Newscasts, private systems, even military networks were hacked. No one could hide from it. The legend of humanity had returned, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something far more dangerous. Survivors with perfect memory, the galaxy had built peace on a lie. Now the lie was broken, and the stars waited to see what the Terrans would do next. The truth could not be stopped. Varn's confession, the Terran signal, ancient war crime Solivit, now echoed across every corner of the galaxy. But Kelvarus was no longer the center now. Every world that had once voted against Earth began to fear, and every world that had not voted at all, who had warned against the purge, who had tried to stop. It began to remember far away in the dark reaches beyond the Harel Nebula. A hidden world called Solintar flickered to life. It was quiet for 10,000 years, a sanctuary. But deep inside its icy surface, machines powered up, ships left underground bunkers, and a message was sent. Earth, you are not alone. Back on Kelveris, Varn and Ultron watched the skies in silence. The people had begun to mourn, to question, to change, but it felt like a storm was coming. Kale sat quietly by a window in the archive's lower level. His voice was low. "They're waking up," he said. Ultron turned to him. Gale looked up. "The ones who never forgot us. The ones who helped us escape. The ones who hid our children after the purge. The ones who are angry, just like we are." At that same moment, multiple fleets appeared across nearby star systems. But they weren't Kelvin. They weren't Terran. These ships were sleek, fast, and silent. They bore no flags. Only one mark, a black star inside a red circle, unknown to most, but remembered by some. Professor Ultron opened the forbidden records again. He found a line that chilled him. The Starfire Pact species that refused to betray Earth during the vote, disbanded, hunted, destroyed. Except, they weren't destroyed. They had gone dark. Now they were returning one of their ships. Smaller than the others, slipped into Kelveri's orbit. No weapons were drawn. It sent a single message. "We seek Kale." Inside the archive, Kale stood. There. "Hear from me," he turned to Varn. "They'll want to talk. You need to hear what they say. The galaxy is about to change again." The meeting took place deep underground. A small group entered, cloaked in black armor. Their leader, a woman with glowing silver eyes and bark-like skin, stepped forward. She looked directly at Kale. "You survived." "Just like they said." Kale nodded. "I did. And now I want to stop the fire before it spreads too far." The woman's voice was soft. "It may already be too late." She turned to Varn and Ultron. "You need to understand something. Earth didn't just survive. They evolved. When the galaxy turned against them, they became something else." Varn asked quietly, "What are they now?" The woman didn't answer right away. Then, with eyes full of memory, she whispered, "They are not just human anymore. They are forged in fire. They are vengeance given form." She placed a device on the table. A map of the galaxy lit up. Dozens of red dots flared across it. Each red mark is a Terran fleet, silent, waiting, hidden in the shadows. Varn stared. "How long have they been there?" The woman looked at him. "Centuries." Ultron stepped forward, alarmed. "Then why haven't they attacked?" The answer came from Kale. They were waiting for the truth to come out. They wanted the galaxy to hear it, to feel it. They wanted the guilty to break under their own fear, and now. Kale turned toward the map. "They'll come, but they won't come to talk. They'll come to collect." The room fell. Silent. The Alliance envoy stepped forward. "We can still stop this. If enough worlds stand beside them. If enough voices rise and say, 'We were wrong.' But you have to lead them, Varn." Kelveris must admit what it did. Varn felt the weight of it. One young historian, now standing between two futures? He nodded. "I will." Outside the sky flickered again. Another Terran signal, this one more direct, more urgent. Final judgment approaches. The morning started quiet, too quiet. Kelveris woke with uneasy calm. The city streets were busy, but many eyes kept looking up, watching the sky. The glowing word "remember" still burned on the northern continent like a scar. But this day was different. Varn stood on the steps of the city hall. Thousands had gathered, not to protest, but to listen. He was about to speak, but then the sky changed. First a flicker, then a shimmer, and finally some massive flash of light. The Terran fleet returned. Thousands of ships filled the sky, blocking out the sun. They came like a storm, silent at first, then suddenly, terrible sound, the sound of a million. Engines roaring at once. Kelvaris defense systems scrambled to respond. Alarms blared. People ran for shelter. Varn's voice was calm but firm. Hold your ground. This is the moment we face our past. The first strike hit, not with fire, not with lasers, but with something older, massive. Metal rods thrown from orbit at near-light speed, they smashed through the old military bases, crushing them like paper. Cities shook. Bridges collapsed. The sky rained fire. But the Terrans didn't fire blindly. Their weapons targeted old war sites, places where Terran colonies once lived, places where betrayal was greatest. The people watched in horror and awe. The ground cracked, buildings crumbled. But still, the Terran fleet held back from total destruction. It was a warning, a message carved in steel and flame. The council scrambled. To respond, General Krex shouted orders. Return fire. Destroy the fleet. But Admiral Jurek stopped him. No, this is not just war. This is judgment. In the chaos, Varn tried to reach Kale. Tell me what to do, he shouted over the noise. Kale's voice was steady. Remember, this is the price of forgetting. As the battle raged, Baron made a decision. He called for a ceasefire. He sent a message to the Terran fleet. I accept our past. I accept our fault. Let us talk. The sky went silent, the engines slowed, the rods stopped falling. A single ship separated from the fleet. It hovered near the city. A hatch opened. A human stepped out. Not a warrior, not a monster, a man in simple armor. He raised his hand. Peace, he said. The crowd gasped for the first time. The myths were no longer stories. They were real, and they had come home. The skies over Kelvaris were still full of Terran ships, but the fire had stopped. Smoke rose from ruined bases, broken towers, and crushed war stations. People walked the streets in silence, some in fear, some in awe. No one dared to speak loudly. For the first time in 10,000 years, the humans stood on alien soil again. The man in simple armor stepped forward. He had no army behind him. No weapon in hand, only his voice. I am Commander Elias Kale, first voice of the Terran remnant. I did not come here to destroy. I came here to make you remember. He looked at Varn, who stood quietly with Professor Altran. This one told the truth. He showed the galaxy what was hidden. Varn stepped forward, nervous but strong. He nodded once. We were wrong. His words were simple, but they echoed across the planet, across the systems, across the galaxy. Elias looked at the gathering crowd, thousands now, standing shoulder to shoulder. You knew what happened to Earth, Elias said, and you watched, or you helped. Some of you voted to end us. Some of you looked away. Some forgot. He raised a small object to cube, glowing faintly blue. This contains names, whole species, whole governments, records of betrayal, pain, blood. He paused. But not all of you were enemies. He tapped the cube. A list projected into the air. A second list, smaller, brighter. Double quotes, these remembered us, protected our children, fought in secret. The crowd looked up. Many didn't recognize the names, but some did. Old species thought, it's lost. Rebels erased from history. Allies who paid the price for standing with Earth. Ilias looked across the planet. The Terran remnant has returned. But we are not just warriors. We are the survivors. We are the truth. We are the test. Silence. Then he said what no one expected. You must choose. His voice was calm, but heavy. This galaxy must choose a new future. One where lies rule, or one built on truth and memory. You can be part of that future, or be washed away by it. The council collapsed that day. Leaders resigned. Some fled. Some were arrested. But Varn didn't run. He stepped forward. Not just as a historian, but as a bridge. A voice of change. Kelvaris declared a day of remembrance, And not just for its own people, but for Earth, for the Terrans, who were burned, forgotten, erased. Monuments rose across the stars, simple black, stones with one word carved deep: remember, in time. Other worlds joined, the Starfire Pact returned, now bigger, stronger, united. No longer in hiding, they called it the New Accord. Not ruled by fear, but by memory. Earth, still scarred, opened its doors again. Ships came from all corners of the galaxy, not as invaders, but as guests. And the Terrans, not as rulers, not as victims, but as guardians of truth. Commander Kale sat on a hill overlooking the rebuilt cities of Kelveris beside him. Vorn wrote in a new book, a new history, one that would never be burned, Kale said quietly. We were myths once. Varn smiled. Not anymore. Above them, Terran ships flew slowly in formation. Not to conquer, but to protect. To remind the galaxy that no truth stays buried forever, that fire cannot burn memory, and that humanity forgotten by the stars had become their final test. The galaxy would never be the same. But maybe, just maybe, it would be better.